Thank you very much. It's another beautiful day in Bricktown in Oklahoma City. And of course, our weather's always like this all the time in Oklahoma. That's what I tell everybody that comes in from out of state. You know, I got up this morning and I was watching the news and some of the political ads that are out now, and it sort of struck me how, you know, there's a wave going through this country right now that taxes are bad. There's, you know, tea parties out there telling people taxes are bad. I watched a political campaign, an ad on TV this morning where a candidate said, "I've never voted for a tax increase." And I started thinking to myself, you know, taxes, nobody likes them, but they're necessary. It's necessary to pay for our water and our sewers and our police and our fire and our education systems and transportation systems and things like that. But sometimes taxes really make a difference. Sometimes a tax investment can give an unbelievable return and can completely change the identity of a community. And that's what's happened in Oklahoma City back when the taxpayers and Ron Norick and visionary leadership back then passed the original MAPS proposal. I grew up in Chickasha, but we would come to Oklahoma City a lot growing up. And I remember when this part of Oklahoma City was just a bunch of old abandoned buildings. There was some old hardware junk store we used to come to every now and then. My stepdad was a builder, and we'd come over here and get something. I don't remember what it was every now and then, and it was nothing. And I remember as late as the late 80s, after I got out of college and I was practicing law, and I did a deposition one evening that ran late in downtown Oklahoma City, and I remember coming out of that deposition at night thinking, my gosh, this is a ghost town, because there was nobody around. There was no place to eat. There was nothing to do, and really, to me, it was a little bit scary. I'm one of those people that doesn't like to go someplace where people are supposed to be when there's nobody there, and that's the way it felt to me. And literally, MAPS completely changed that dynamic. One of the big challenges that's going on in cities across this very nation is what I call the donut effect. What happens is growth occurs in suburbs surrounding cities and starts to create a donut where people and investment in the tax base leaves the center. Well, what happens is that all the cost is left in the center, but all the tax base leaves, and that's why you see large cities struggling so much with their budgets all across the country, is because of the donut. Well, what MAPS did is it basically reversed the donut effect and filled in the donut. MAPS raised, I believe, some $359 million of public investment in infrastructure in Bricktown. What happened then? Well, so far, and the story is still going on, we've seen over $3.1 billion of private investment that initial seed investment brought along, as well as another I think it's about $1.9 billion of announced new investments. So we're talking about $5 billion of investment so far on that initial $359 million investment. That's over a 10-to-1 return on your money. So this is an instance where we can say taxes were not only were more than just a necessary evil, they absolutely revitalized and changed the whole composition and complexion of this city and this state. Because Oklahoma City has now become very much the economic center of our state. And Bricktown has become the core of Oklahoma City. And I watch tax receipts and revenues all the time, and I notice, of course, we've gone through the biggest recession and downturn in revenues that our state has experienced. We've seen nothing like what we just went through since the Great Depression in this state. And when I started watching the recovery, guess who started recovering first? Is Oklahoma City. And guess whose sales tax revenues started recovering first? It was Oklahoma City. And again, what's the engine that's driving that? Bricktown. I mean, you have about 3 million people a year that visit this very area of town and spend money. And they spend money on things that create jobs, that create sales tax, and create economic opportunity in the city of Oklahoma City as well as across the whole state. So thank you very much, Bricktown, for the massive role you play in this city and in our state's economy. But I think you can't rest. I mean, I think obviously we built this thing that was the envy of mayors from across the country as they came here and looked at what we had in our city. And that's not the first time. We've had a lot of other groups come into Oklahoma just to study the Oklahoma City story and the story of Bricktown and try to take it back and replicate it in their communities. But I think you can't rest where you are. I've always thought, my philosophy has always been, whenever you're standing still, everyone else is moving past you. And so you can't afford to stand still. You have to continually be pushing forward and pushing for new investment and new growth. And there's another big infusion of public money getting ready to be spent in this general vicinity through MAPS 3, which is even a much larger investment of cash even than the initial Bricktown investment was. And again, I think that has to be done smartly, it has to be done wisely, it has to be done with an eye towards the future, but also it has to be done with an eye towards building upon the success we already have. We've created a center of success here, a center of excellence, if you want to call it that. And we need to continue to build on that center, and we need to make sure that new investment enhances and increases the value and product that is already here to offer. I think that obviously we've started to see a turn in the economy. I think about 3 or 4 months ago we started noticing at the state level a sort of a bottoming, so to speak, and our numbers have started to pick up since then. And again, sales tax is usually one of the last ones that comes along, but sales tax started picking up 2 months ago. We started seeing it at the state level about the same time we saw here, but again, this area led the way. Employment has started to rebound. Personal income has started to rebound. So I think we're getting ready to end. We've ended, really. I think when the books are closed, we'll say we ended the recession probably in Oklahoma at the end of last year, and we've just started in the initial phases of recovery. I don't think the recovery is going to be as robust as what we've seen in the past until we see a rebound in natural gas prices, because let's face it, Oklahoma is very much a natural gas-based economy, but we will see growth, and the worst of it is behind us. And if you look at how Bricktown weathered this worst recession in our state's history, you'd say, yeah, I'm sure you saw it a little bit in some of your numbers, but thank goodness for the thunder, because at the same time you had this recession pulling business down, you had the thunder pulling people in. And I was really thinking of the contrast. I was fortunate enough to go to only one of the Thunder playoff games. And I was thinking this morning about the contrast of that, many years ago, that night after that deposition when I stepped out in Oklahoma City, downtown Oklahoma City was a ghost town, versus what it was like that night I was lucky enough to get to go to one of the Thunder playoff games when there were people literally everywhere. I think there's many people outside the stadium as there were inside the arena. It was just an amazing thing, and the Thunder has been an amazing shot in the arm to Bricktown that really helped Bricktown not feel the full brunt of the recession like most other places did all across this country. So anyway, my message to you is, Bricktown, you're doing good, and keep it up. Thanks a lot.